Hi, I'm Betsy, and welcome to CAM Matters. Today we're going to be talking about enforcement and why that matters.
Welcome to CAM Matters, condos, co-ops, HOAs, and beyond. Betsy Barbieux is an informational leader in Florida on community association living, rights, and obligations. She is an expert on the rights and obligations of owners as well as the association. If you live or are planning to live in the state of Florida, there's a good chance you'll be part of a community association. And by the end of this show, you'll know a little bit more about community associations and why they matter.
Hi, welcome to CAM Matters. I'm Suzanne Lynn. This is Betsy Barbieux, and we are talking about enforcement today. And I don't know. I think when you start thinking about boards and community living, it kind of gets a bad rap. We want to talk about, first of all, why we've got to have these rules and why there is enforcement.
It does get a bad rap, and I'm glad that I have a chance to defend it.
Right. Yeah.
And to tell the other side. You hear of so many mean boards,
right,
and they're
right.
mean to these
Well, the neighbors
old
are talking
people,
to other
and
neighbors.
They're mean to,
yes, absolutely.
And I tell you, no one ever presents the other side, so right. I'm going to present the other side today. Enforcement, the why of it is, and I'm going to tag back to something that we said earlier in an earlier show.
Okay.
The why is because of these. Mm-hmm. We as in owners and the board, the association, the corporation, are in a contractual relationship. The parties to the contract have to fulfill the mandates in the contract.
That's a lot. Can I just pick this up? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So is this a typical?
Oh, it's small. That's small. Okay. Just put it back down.
Yeah. I didn't want to get a hernia, you know.
But we are in a contractual relationship. When you moved into your community, I'll just go back and refresh just a little
yes.
bit. But when you moved into your community, you traded off some of your rights to do what you want with your property in exchange for something else. Mm-hmm. If you moved from Texas and had a farm in Texas and you move here, yes, you will have to clean up after your dog. Mm-hmm. And you probably did not in Texas.
Probably
on the
not.
farm.
The cattle. Yeah.
No, in fact, you use that for other
right,
stuff. Yeah.
Right.
But this is a contractual relationship. When you moved in, you were given the opportunity to read these, whether you know it or not. Mm. You were. These are public. We talked about them being public. Mm-hmm. It's possible that here you don't really recognize that you have a trade-off. You might have promised in your contract to not paint your house or not re-roof or put a fence in or a pool in without getting permission from the homeowner association. Mm. You might have moved into your condo and became contractually obligated to not hang a wreath on your door or put a flower pot outside of your front door.
But you just signed. I want this place.
I want this place.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The reason for the restrictions is to maintain the lifestyle and the look of the community. Mm-hmm. I think I mentioned earlier that homes in community associations are 5 to 6% higher in value mm-hmm. than homes that are not. Mm-hmm. Have you ever driven through a neighborhood that does not have a homeowners association?
You mean with the cars jacked up on cement blocks?
Yes.
Where they're changing the oil?
Yes, and the old dishwasher and the old refrigerator out in the yard. And
the fact is you were probably attracted to your community because it had a certain look to it.
They're uniform, right? Harmonious.
Right.
You know, they have a nice scheme and design to them, and that probably attracted mm-hmm. you. So we don't want you to be the neighbor that puts your car up on the blocks
right.
to change the oil.
Right, right.
So that is why we have a contractual obligation. The board has to enforce these, mm-hmm. and the owners, by moving in, have agreed to comply mm-hmm. voluntarily. Mm-hmm. Comply.
Okay. Because it takes enforcement to keep a certain standard.
And quite frankly, there are a few people who should not live in these kinds of communities because they can't stand a line drawn in the sand and they just have to stomp on it.
Okay.
And so there's some people who just shouldn't be here.
Sure.
You need to go back to the farm.
Right.
And that's okay.
And you want more flexibility.
Yeah,
than
and
just,
that's okay. That's okay. But for a lot of people, 9,600,000 in Florida, this is the way they like to live. So that's the why. The board is not picking on you. The board, or shouldn't be.
Right.
We can talk about equitable.
Right.
But the board is doing what it has to do. It has no choice. If it says that you have to build your home with a setback of 50 feet or a setback of 80 feet, then you can't build your home any other way but that.
Well, it's important. I mean, you want to keep things as they are, and that's part of the important part is being aware when you're moving into a community that's existing.
And you know, we're hoping with this series of CAM Matters that this will help people.
Right. Sure.
So that they'll know some things before they move in.
So when we first started this show, you talked about you want to give the other side, because it's very true. One neighbor talks to another. Oh, they only hear this. They want to make him get rid of their dog that's 13 years old. Well, there's more to the story. If it comes down to the board, it's probably because they've exceeded the amount of pets. And they've now made that story so refined to make it look like they're the victim.
Yeah.
So.
And pets are another matter.
Right. We'll do a show on that.
We'll do a show on pets. But when the board is asking you to comply, it's because they have been required to by the documents. Yes, there are occasionally bully boards, but for the most part, they're not.
Right.
They're just doing what they're supposed to do from the contract.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, when we come back, we are going to talk about the who part of enforcement. Okay. And this is where things can get a little bit crazy, so you don't want to miss it.
Okay.
Are you ready for a new career? Do you have skills or interest in management, real estate, construction, maintenance, accounting, strategic planning, project management, budgets, human resource management, lawn and landscaping, pool services, or any other expertise needed to operate a community association? If you do, community association management could be for you. For more information, feel free to email Betsy at betsy@floridacamschools.com or visit the Florida Cam Schools website at www.floridacamschools.com. Florida Community Association Management continues to grow. Career opportunities abound.
Welcome back to CAM Matters with Suzanne and Betsy, and today we're talking about enforcement, and we covered the why. Now we're getting to the who, and this is where it gets a little more personal, because sometimes it feels like it's personal, like they're beating you up a little bit, like they're targeting you,
and they're probably not.
Okay.
Now again, there are some boards that are out of line, but for the most part, most are not.
Okay.
They are enforcing the restrictions in the documents because they have to.
Okay.
Again, we're going back to this as a business. And if you want to know how big of a business it is, let's do a little bit of arithmetic.
Okay.
If you take the value of a home or a unit, multiply that times the number of homes or units in your community, and right there,
that's a lot.
That's a lot,
big
right
number.
there.
Right.
And you can even take a 10-year-ago depressed value of a home or a unit, multiply that times the number of units, add to that your budget amount, which could have a lot of zeros after that, add to that the reserve account amount. Reserves are the strategic savings for the big ticket items that we're going to replace in years to come, like roof, paving, painting, elevator, pool, resurfacing, those kinds of things that we're going to replace in 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. You add to that, and some communities' reserves are millions of dollars.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then you add to that the value of the common property, the things that the pool, the clubhouse, the roads are on. You add that, and we have something with a dozen or more zeros after it. This is a multi-million-dollar corporation. You as owners think of it as your home, but the board has to put on their business hat and see it as a business.
Okay.
And they are fulfilling their contractual obligations to enforce whatever it says in here. And as much as it might feel personal when you get that violation letter, it's not. It's business. the board has to be equitable in its enforcement, so they can't let one owner slide
Sure.
and then hammer on another owner.
Right. They've got to be consistent.
They have to be
right.
consistent. They have to be equitable. And the documents will require the board to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So they will be fulfilling what is here, plus boards need a written policy for how many letters do they send to an owner to get
Sure.
compliance, and then when they have reached the point that the owner is not going to comply, do you turn it over to the attorney, which is going to cost money, or do you use internal procedures that the statutes allow, which would be to fine them or to suspend the use rights of
They can't use the pool
Can't use
or
the
something
pool,
like that,
right.
right?
or to, in some cases, depending on which type of violation it is, to suspend their voting rights.
Okay.
So those would be internal procedures, but they need written policies for how and when they implement that so that they don't appear to be arbitrary.
Right. Don't most boards already have those established, though?
Oh, Suzanne, no, they do
They
not.
don't?
They don't.
Oh.
They don't.
It's easier once you move in and it's already established. This is the way it is, but when you're making the...
Oh, and that is
Yeah.
something that I try to help on the management side with the managers. I try to give managers opportunities in their continuing ed classes to draft some of these policies and
Sure.
procedures and get them started,
Right.
and then give them to the board and say, here, I got it
Right,
started for
right,
you. We
right,
need these.
right.
We need these. Now, a lot of management companies have policies and procedures written, and a lot of the much, much, much larger communities
Okay.
have policies and procedures that are written. But when you have a part-time manager, or you have a manager and a half part-time maintenance person, chances of having all of that structure and time to write the policies and procedures are slim.
And it's probably not just having the procedures, it's then enforcing the procedures. Who's going to put the notes on the door and send out the letters and stuff?
Right. And if you don't have management at all, if the board is all volunteer and doing everything themselves, then each board member has to, be the point person
Right.
for something, and that means probably one board member is going to be the point person for enforcement.
Sure. I feel like we could go a whole lot longer than we normally do with this show, but I do want to talk about, before we wrap up, the rights of sitting in a meeting, of a board meeting, and what you feel like needs to be enforced, and shouting out things like there's procedures,
you've heard of
right?
those meetings.
Right, I've heard of them.
Oh, you've heard of those meetings.
Like, what's proper? What should people know as they're going into a board meeting?
First, the thing that you should know when you're going to a board meeting as an owner, it's not for you. The board meeting is not for you.
They
the
don't work
owner.
for us?
No.
Okay.
No, we work for the documents. The
Okay.
board works for the documents. The manager works for the documents. The board meeting is for the board.
Okay.
The statutes don't allow the board collectively as a whole to discuss business outside of a board meeting.
Okay.
So only time they can talk about reviewing the contracts, violations, compliance, financials, anything to do with maintenance and those kinds of issues, the contracts, the only time they can talk about that is at a board meeting.
Okay.
They're not supposed to talk with each other outside of a meeting.
Okay.
They then need to sit so that they see each other. You cannot do business, and they're doing business, with people whose eyeballs you cannot see.
Right. So if they're sitting as if they're on stage.
So they should not be sitting on stage.
Right.
They should not be sitting in a panel style, because in all fairness, that makes the meeting look like it's for the owners.
Sure.
But the board meeting is not an informational meeting for the owner.
Right.
It is not a Q&A for the owner. The board meeting is for the board.
to cover what's on the agenda that night,
They can
right?
only cover what's on the agenda. The law does not allow them to add anything to the agenda. It has to be set 48 hours in advance of what's going to be on the agenda. So any of those freewheeling comments that the board is allowing owners
My
to
lawn
make
is brown.
is
That's not appropriate.
It is not appropriate. It's not contemplated by the statute. If an owner has a concern, I want that concern gathered some way.
Right. You want it heard.
I want it heard, but not at the meeting.
Okay.
It doesn't belong at the meeting. That's not what the meeting is for.
Okay.
The meeting is for the board to do its business.
Okay.
It's not to give information to the owners. It's not to take complaints from the owners. The thing about the complaints and all those pop-up yelling, screaming things that happen is that nothing can be done about it at that meeting because whatever that was that the owner just brought up wasn't on the agenda.
Okay.
So you can't do anything about it anyway.
That is
makes
so
the
good to
owner
know.
more angry.
Sure it does. Yeah,
It makes them
absolutely.
more angry.
Yeah.
Because, well, if what's the point in me telling you if you can't do anything?
Right.
Well, that's not what the purpose of this meeting is for.
Or to knock on the president's door at
No,
night.
there needs to be a procedure. If you have any level of management at all violation issues, complaints, and maintenance complaints need to go through management.
Okay.
Managers know that part of our job is to be the buffer for the board so that the board can enjoy walking the dog
Sure.
or sitting at the pool or playing golf
Right.
without owners constantly telling them
Right.
about things that
Right.
stuff.
Reminder, it's a volunteer position.
Volunteer,
Right.
right. And managers know that this is our job. Bring it to us first. But board members also need to be taught to say, have you told
Sure.
Betsy?
Right.
Have
right.
you told the manager?
Right.
Tell her first, and if she can't take care of it, she'll bring it to the board.
So to wrap up the whole show, would you say that if you have a problem that you want the board to address, you need to take it to management and then it gets put on an agenda, and that's the proper procedure?
If management cannot handle it.
Okay.
If management can't handle it,
Okay.
can't resolve whatever the issue is, then the manager will bring it to the board.
Okay. What are some final thoughts that you have on enforcement? Because it's such a touchy subject.
It's not personal. It is business, and it is because we are all contractually obligated to each other. It's a contract.
It's a big business with a lot of zeros.
A lot of zeros
That's
after
right.
it.
Thank you, Betsy. It was a great one today. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to CAM Matters. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. For more information, feel free to email Betsy at betsy@floridacamschools.com or visit the Florida Cam Schools website at www.floridacamschools.com. Information provided on this show is general in nature and does not constitute legal advice. Please contact a licensed attorney for your specific situation.